for now, but remember you can get here, and I'll open the panel again. You get here by going to Project, Project Settings, General, and then you go to Configure next to Capture Format in Matrox M2V. Okay, so that's how you actually access the source settings for the device. Okay. Input type, you can always leave it set to broadcast quality. The only time you would ever go to consumer quality is if you're using VHS. So anything else is going to be broadcast. And then down here, the capture format you cannot change. It's automatically going to fill that out for you. Okay. If I change this to maybe 720p, oops, I don't want 50. I want 5994. That should be 16 by 9. Okay, good. And then configure. Okay, so the configure button does work. This will let you set the bit rate for the codec. So if we hit configure there, then you can change the target bit rate. You can change the max bit rate. And I recommend that you leave the GOP structure alone. So all this stuff that's down here, just leave it the way it is. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now let me change this to 1080i. Let's see. This is not actually giving me the settings that I want. This is only recording in like a standard def format. So let's do this. Let's switch this to Matrox AVI and see if it gives us better choices. Yeah, MPEG 2 iframe is better. Alright, so let's actually change what we said earlier. Instead of using M2V, this would only be useful for DVD format. You're going to use Matrox AVI instead. And that's going to be your higher res choice.
Okay, the
M2V would only be for DVD. Okay, so if your production workflow still is DVD, you could use this to record. And if you record in this format, if you start and stop the recording exactly where it needs to be, there's not even any editing required. You could actually take that clip that it records and put it straight to a DVD disc and it would work. There's no conversion necessary after that. But if you're recording in Matrox AVI, it's not recording in a DVD compatible format by default, but you can always render to a DVD still, and the difference is in the AVI format you're recording in a higher res, higher bitrate format anyway. Okay, so if you're going to do anything high def, it has to be this one, and if you're doing anything other than DVD, then I recommend this as well. Okay, so now when we go back to configure, notice that it's giving us more choices as far as the codec. This was locked out before, remember? So MPEG 2 iframe is actually the format you should use. If you were using uncompressed, the files would be really, really huge, and there's not a whole lot of gain in terms of quality. So you're going to get just as good a quality by using MPEG 2, but the file is going to be like 5 times smaller, okay? Which means that the hard disks aren't working as hard, you're not taking up as much space for the amount of storage that you're using. It's basically better all the way around, okay?
So the MPEG 2 frame.
iframe.
iframe.
And when we configure that, then you'll notice it starts at 25, which is what I was looking at or looking for before, and we can actually bump it all the way up to like 50. So at high def, I'd recommend that you leave it at 50. For standard def, leave it at 25. Okay? Alright, so let's hit OK there. And so this is basically done. Yep. Video out. Alright, so if you go to the video output tab, this is where you configure the bottom row or the output side of the MX02. So if you set it for composite and S-video, you're going to get just a standard, composite signal and S-video signal out of the 3 ports. I would actually recommend that you leave it in component and leave it in YUV. Okay? And this is going to give you standard component out. Alright, HDMI out.